My name is Valentin Christian Voina. I work for Pfaff Tuning. I wear many hats at Pfaff Tuning, to say the least. I'm a Master Automotive Technician, licensed in United States and Canada. Me particularly, I carry the regular task of servicing, diagnosis, helping with parts, coding ROs, and then also help the apprentices in the shop. I work with the other techs on whatever projects we have going on during the day, but primarily my work has been more towards larger projects, towards repair, vintage work. I would say some contemporary work, primary Porsche and Ferrari. I started very young. I would say I was blessed. My grandfather had a vintage car, so to say, back in Romania, where I was born. So he had a 1968 Russian-made Moskvich 408, which was a copy of Western models at the time. It was a carbureted four-cylinder. I still remember it blue with cloth interior. The seats, I remember vividly, had no headrest, no support of any sort. It was like sort of like a bench and a 4-speed gearbox, rear-wheel drive with leaf springs in the rear. It was just the coolest thing I saw, so that really ignited the passion for me. I remember pulling every button. There were like 3 buttons only on the dash. So when my grandfather would leave to work, the wipers would come on and the radio would be on and high beams would be already on. So it was always something interesting. But that's where I really started. So from there on, I think it ignited a passion for the automobile in general. I left Romania when I was 17. I moved to the US, and then I started over there. I dove deeply into the automotive side, finished high school there, finished technical education there, went to a technical institute, did manufacturer training in the programs that they had with school. I took my ASE exams, got my license over there. I worked for an independent for a little bit. We did a lot of racing and SCCA and amateur, and then semi-pro as well, in ITS, ITR with BMW. And after that, I moved to Ferrari, and that was truly where I think the learning took. It took a different curve altogether, exponential and significantly more aggressive in learning because of the scheme of the facility. It was incredible. I always had a passion for European cars. I was always attentive to detail, and I was always, I would say, excessively curious about all things mechanical and electrical in nature. After that, I went to a place called Pisco Race Engineering, where we did Formula 1600, we did Formula 2000, and we did radical prototypes, which was again pretty cool, and that was at a pro level. So we raced across the US following Indy Series and Indy Lights. And Formula 1600 was great. The learning curve again was steep, and it was just a different type of approach to working. It was unorthodox hours, obviously, when you work on a race team. I think most people can relate to that. When I started dating my wife at the time, towards the end of that journey, I was traveling quite a lot, and I had to basically make a decision. Whether get married and have kids or just continue racing. So I obviously took the first option. I very much fell in love and put things on pause for a later time. And then my wife started to go to Canada to school. I started to follow. We did some back and forth. And then we got here. I worked here at an independent as well. It's important to understand the cars that we deal with. It's almost at times for me a preservation factor as well. I mean, I'm preserving an air-cooled 911 from the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, and I think New touched upon that too in her interview, for the future generation. funny story is that my daughter's 4 at this point. So I went home with a Porsche cop car, remote control, 991. And she had a doll as well next to it. And I said, Daddy brought you some gifts from work. And she looked at the two and is like, what does this thing do with the wheels, right? And she grabbed the Porsche and she's like, Daddy, I love it so much. And it blew me away. And ever since then, she's always asking me if I'm gonna bring her a Porsche car. She just grew so inquisitive about this brand. And I think it's great because I've always been a fan, and hopefully I can pass on to her. So that brings the point of the preservation factor. I've been blessed to work with a lot of great people. I've made some mistakes. I learned a lot, and the key thing to understand is that learning is a lifelong process. The one thing that it's key here for me, since I came here, and what I wanted to realize, a team is very important, is quality. I think that's something that today is almost forgotten, where we live in such a crazy world, get everything done quickly. And with some of the old cars, you can't really rush into that. And I think that brings some challenges where you have to meet certain due dates. But it's important to instill that into what we do, and I hope that it shows. But it's something that's very important to understand and to grasp, because we're very fortunate to do the things that we do and to touch the cars that we touch, and that we cannot take that for granted.